In Israel, tens of thousands of protesters took to the streets today for what they had billed as a day of resistance. It succeeded in blocking Benjamin Netanyahu's road journey through Tel Aviv. He had to resort to being airlifted by helicopter instead. But back on the ground, his government is facing growing opposition to plans that would push through a complete overhaul of the country's judicial system. That, says the crowds, would amount to dictatorship.
At the outset, it was good-natured enough. But the protesters had a message to convey, and ultimately they couldn't say it with roses. They had warned that if the government didn't halt its reforms, then they would bring Israel to a halt. And this afternoon we watched as some of them outmaneuvered the police and blocked the main dual carriageway through Tel Aviv, in both directions. It was definitely a day to take the train. They are unlikely demonstrators, former military officers, teachers, lawyers, engineers, doctors, the bedrock of Israeli society. Some government ministers are now calling them anarchists. They were protesting against a government power grab posing as judicial reform. The most right-wing cabinet in this country's history wants to strip the Supreme Court of the authority to veto laws that judges deem unfit.
It is the beginning of a threat, and this is why it has to be stopped right at this point.
I think it's the most critical moment we have in 70 years.
2 hours drive from Tel Aviv on the West Bank, the Palestinian town of Huwara knows what an unrestrained radical government might be capable of. Late last month, after a Hamas terrorist shot dead 2 Israelis as they drove through town, 400 Jewish settlers went on the rampage here. In the aftermath of this, the most extensive settler violence ever recorded, an Israeli general said a pogrom had been inflicted on the people of Huwara. However, Israel's finance minister, himself a settler, took a different view, saying during an interview that the town should be wiped out. The fact that an Israeli cabinet minister called on the state of Israel to commit a war crime by wiping this Palestinian town off the map set off alarm bells at home and abroad. In Washington, the State Department called the comment disgusting. The minister has since claimed it was a slip of the tongue. Settlers attacked Huwara again on Monday. In his haste to get away, the Palestinian driver of the middle car dropped his keys. You can see a settler take an axe to the windows. There were 5 people in the vehicle, including the driver Omar and his 2-year-old daughter Tia, pictured in hospital afterwards. Today the child appears fully recovered, but her dad still remembers it as a near-death experience.
And tried to hit me in my neck.
With an axe?
Yeah, I just do like that to my father's side, and the axe was on the head of the car, of the chair.
Today, blocked roads meant the US Defense Secretary couldn't get beyond Tel Aviv airport after flying in, and the Israeli Prime Minister had to take a helicopter to meet him there. Mr. Netanyahu will not have liked the view the flight gave him. He's put his government and a sizable proportion of his people on a collision course. John Irvine, News at 10, Tel Aviv.